Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is Meditation and Mindfulness with Rabbi Adam Kligfeld.
Shabbat's coming in a few hours. It's an opportunity to give a gift to ourselves even before the gift of Shabbat, kind of a pre-Shabbat, a little Shabbating of pulling back, of resting, but resting in a very intentional and focused way before we have the 25 hours of Shabbat. A reminder of some of the language that we use, that the rest of meditation is not a slouch, it's not slack, it's not having no affect, which is what some notions of Western rest are. It's very alert, and conscientious, and intentional, and I'm very awake, but still deeply restful for the soul and the mind. Even as it activates the mind, it also rests and restores the mind, which is a very Jewish notion of rest, right? We are very active on Shabbat to create a rest that will be restorative. That's a version of what we're going through for here. And this meditation will focus on the first word of the Parsha. We're in Parshat Va'et Hanan, a word built from the root chet nun nun, which means something having to do with graciousness, or in its core root beauty, like chen. But in the hitpa'el, it means to beg or to plead. Moshe reminding us that Moshe begged and pleaded with God to allow him into the land of Israel. And of course, the name of the Parsha itself emotionally reminds us that Moshe, the greatest of our leaders, pleaded with God, and the answer was no. It's really an important lesson that Moshe was told no, even though he begged. So I want us to meditate a bit on what we plead for and beg for, of whom, knowing that even if we really want and need it, we don't always get it. And then the reverse. Who is doing Va'et Hanan to us? Who is pleading with and begging us? And what it feels like when we sometimes have to say no. So, with that in mind, I want to ask you to close your eyes. Allow yourself to sink into this moment with that passive, active dynamic. You are actively trying to get passive. You are using thought and posture and breathing and real alert focus to be able to put all that aside in order to have a moment of beautiful passivity where you are being carried by your thoughts and your mind rather than you carrying them. Trust this moment. Trust that it will take you where you need to go and nowhere else. Trust that you will be well and whole. Trust the contours of your consciousness, even the things around the corner that will show themselves to you as you explore. And trust your breathing. Trust your body and your limbs and your appendages. And as always, let those muscles relax. Unclench your eyes and your jaw. Unfurrow your brow. Let your shoulders hang low in their sockets, as if you are very intentionally putting yourself on one of those lazy rivers at a water park. You're upheld by a buoyant tube. You're traveling in a direction at a pace that is gentle. You're both going around and around, over and over again. And yet sometimes, somehow, the view keeps changing. It's the movement and the flow that have beautiful dynamism to it. Let's just deepen into this moment and enjoy it until we add some layers of images and requests of our own psyche. Just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, both gentle and determined. Breaths deep enough that you're aware you're breathing differently than usual, but no need to overexert to prove your lung capacity to yourself. Va'et Hanan, in Moshe's own retelling of the story, I pleaded, I begged, I really wanted, and I asked. Va'et Hanan, I appealed to God's chen, to God's abundant grace. What are you begging for, pleading for right now, and to whom? How is it different than an ask, a request? What does it feel like to do it? Does it make you feel grand because you are pleading for your needs? Or small and humble because the answer is not up to you? Va'et Hanan, I plead, I beg. Of whom and for what? And does it work? Does pleading, that word that's built on the same word as please, at least in English, does it change the outcome? Please? Pretty please? I beg of you? What's the impact of those words on the one being begged? Does it open their heart? Or is it too much and close them off? Their minds are made up. Who is va'etchananing to you? Switch it around with you in the God role, as it were. Who's the Moshe? Stating his or her wants, needs. I beg you. I plead. What does it feel like to be beseeched in that way? Does it stir your generosity or stymie it? And in both directions, with you the pleader, or you the one being begged, what happens when the answer is no? Not an angry no, but a definite no. Does that end the relationship? Does it wound it? Or is there something beyond that pleading and that no that has its own beauty, its own endurance? Va'et chanan. I pleaded. Someone pleaded with me. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes no. Va'et chanan. I pleaded. And I remained connected. I heard the plea. I couldn't say yes. I remain bonded nonetheless. Va'et chanan. Va'et chanan. Va'et chanan. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. We'll say the closing blessing together 3 times. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. And may we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. And may we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. And may we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. And I say to you all, Shalom and Namaste and Shabbat Shalom.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.